Hi everyone, thanks for being here. More and more people are telling me that they need to write executive summaries. I think because more and more people are getting too busy to read an entire report and typically want to read just the summary. Well, we got a request. Thank you so much, Felipe. One of our thoughtful viewers requested a video on writing an executive summary, so that's what's coming up. And we'll also talk a little bit about bulleted lists that you might include as referenced in his comment. So here's what we are going to cover. Why are we writing an executive summary? What's the purpose and how should that influence our writing decisions? Secondly, what goes in there, the content. And then lastly, the style, the writing style, how we want these to come off. And I'll be sharing examples along the way. Let's get into it. Why are we writing an executive summary? Typically, there are two reasons, one of two. And you can think about, in your scenario, which do you think is the real reason? In some situations, we write an executive summary because that's all a particular person will read. Often, executives are thinking, hey, we're making a lot of decisions today. I need to just read these summaries and be able to decide. Other people might read the report once they've thought, wow, what a wonderful executive summary. It inspires me to want to learn more about this topic. So you're either writing to sort of fill in for a decision maker who can't spare the time for the 20-page report, or you're writing a great executive summary at the beginning of a 20-page report, sort of convincing other readers to go forward and look through that report as well. So a couple different purposes, and when you think about the one you're writing, who will be reading it, and what do you think is their situation? What do they need to decide? And what do you need to tell them in order for them to be able to make that decision, right? Because it's hard. It's another balancing act in writing. We're trying to be brief and yet comprehensive. So it's up to you to decide, when is something an important enough detail to be included? Well, to me, we can decide that based on whether the reader needs that information to be able to make a decision. Then we want it in there, in the summary itself, not just the report. So what are we putting in an executive summary? Let's talk content for a little bit. They're not always identical, but most executive summaries follow a pattern kind of like this. Sometimes you'll see number 1 and 2 are sort of the same thing. You might see number 3 and 4, sort of the same thing. So I'll talk about a couple examples in hopes that whatever you're working on can be helped by one of these ways of doing it. So typically we're like, purpose statement, what is this for? Why are we even talking about this topic? Problem statement, there must be something not ideal, usually, in order for us to write this. Now, if it's just a report, an annual report, maybe your problem statement has to do with what you accomplished that year. Or maybe you're writing an analytic report and your problem statement has to do with something you're trying to solve, which is the most common, I would say. So both of those, we're getting out there. Why are we reading this? Why does this exist? What is the problem, or what is the situation that we're trying to make the best of? Then we get into, well, where did all this learning come from? If you're writing a more scientific academic paper, you might think of this as results. If you're writing a more corporate internal management and processes paper, you might think of it as, what's the internal situation now? What's the protocol? What are the processes? What does data show us about what's happening internally among our teams? And that kind of stands in as your research, which fits with number 4. What have we seen? What have we learned? And then that leads us to have something to recommend. You can kind of think of the recommendation in a way as what will then launch the report. Here I'm going to show you how deep the problem is and how feasible this solution is. So let's look at a couple examples, one using paragraphs, one using bulleted lists, and then we'll talk style. All right, over here we have an example. You can see the color coding where I'm looking at a more internal purpose, and that's why I've chosen 3B. So I'll read this through so you get the ring of it, but you can tell by the colors what I'm doing in the different sections. All right, pretending that we're analyzing an internal process for bringing in new employees, onboarding, training. Our onboarding process has evolved on its own over the past few years. We have not had a consistent approach, which has left some departments with questions. and you're starting to sense the need, I feel a need for a solution. I feel a need for research. I feel a need for a report. After interviewing leaders in 5 departments, we have found the onboarding process creates workflow disruptions. Based on the data gathered during this process, we recommend, and you go on to say what you're recommending. So this is a very common way to set this up. In some cases, if you've been told that your executive summary can be a half page or even a full page, some of these might be longer, but this gives you that sort of skeleton. Let's look at this if we wanted to use a bulleted list, like you've sometimes seen at the top of a report, highlights and then a few bullets. Here's a way to do that. We still want to have some kind of statement of, hey, here comes some bullets, here's what we're talking about. But then you give the overall 3 or 4 highlights to that reader. Here's an example. Excuse me. This report analyzes our current onboarding process and recommends a data-driven path forward. Purpose of my report, almost kind of like a thesis statement in a way, right? Report highlights include our current onboarding process lacks consistency. 5 departments report time loss due to these inconsistencies, and then we recommend X, Y, and Z moving forward. If you'd like, here is a link to how to write with bulleted lists in a way that's grammatically correct, so you know you're going to look as professional as possible. Now, you may work somewhere that prefers paragraphs, that gives you a length requirement, a minimum, a maximum, or that asks you to only use bullets. So consider that here. As you can see with the bullets I've written, I'm using a who, what structure. Departments is the who, reported time lost. We, the who, my what is recommend. Our current process lacks. Super concise, really, really easy for the reader to read, understand, and remember. So let's talk style, which that relates to. The length of your executive summary is typically about 10% of your whole document. So if someone said, hey, give me a 3-page rundown of blah, 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 your executive summary might be pretty brief, right? But if you've written a longer one, it might be a page, or often a half page is common. Your order should reflect the outline of your actual report. And if you've said, hey, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, make sure it's not 4, 3, 2, 1 when they get there, right? We want these things to align. Don't want to surprise the reader. Always want to use active voice, and here's a link in case you're not sure how to do that, right? It's not too hard. It's not as hard as it sounds. It's just about the order of your words. Similarly, you want to use a who, what structure like we just saw for those bulleted lists, getting that key information in there for your reader. Always, always welcome to use headings even and bullets. It's okay to use formatting within your executive summary. It does not need to just be a paragraph or 3 paragraphs. Okay to have that formatting to help the reader scan and find their way around is still a great thing to do here. And so a couple examples on that stylistic idea, and then we'll wrap up. Writing with a who, what forward structure. Here's another video on that. You want to do that here because you don't want to be spending any of your limited space on wordy words. We just want to get to the meaning. So instead of writing in the style of it has been shown that hybrid work teams often benefit from monthly remote all-hands meetings, I'm going to switch that around to a who, what structure. Monthly remote all-hands meetings can support hybrid work teams. And keep it brief, and let's look at one more of these where I'm going to bring in that bulleted list idea as well. It is also described in this report that, pretty wordy lead-in, right? Annual data has revealed an increase in dissatisfaction among 2 groups of clients. Well, I can just make that a lot easier. The report covers, and then my 2 different things, annual data from these situations and interviews, dissatisfaction in these situations. So between the style choices and limiting your content according to that outline we saw earlier, you can say a lot, but still keep it brief. All right, so let me know what questions you have. But first, I want to share a special announcement. Coming up real soon, my workbook's coming out. So you've heard of the High Value Writing book, which walks you through how to be clear, concise, and connected. This workbook will be larger and have lots of practice problems. It's coming out in the next couple of months. I will let you know as soon as we have a release date. Thanks for being here. Let me know if you have questions. You're always welcome to request a topic like Felipe has done. We love that. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you all real soon. Me again, thanks for watching. We really want to support our community of high-value writers, so we have lots of new learning opportunities and discounts for 2024. Let me tell you about them quickly. If you like what you're learning in the videos, a lot of that is described in the high-value writing book, and here is a coupon for 20% off, code high-value writer. We also have the book as an electronic format, so wherever you may live, you can use this code to get half off. We also, of course, have the book on Amazon if that's easier for you. To get even deeper and to really practice your skills in a more interactive way, we have e-courses now. I'm in all of them, talking to you about how to make revisions to make sure that your writing is meeting the purposes that you want. So check it out. Again, 20% off with High Value Writer. I hope to see you in class. If you take a class, you get the chance to leave questions. I'll answer you in 24 hours. And you get the chance to talk with other participants who have taken it as well in the discussion board. So check out these opportunities. Let me know if you have a question, and I hope to see you soon, either here or in one of these classes.